My experience was never good with sharing space, so I just moved into an independent apartment. I'm a single woman, independent, a professional. Here is my ID card, here are my details, this is what I do, but still they needed a man. I mean, they were like, we need to talk to a man. I have lost a lot of girlfriends for this reason, because somehow their husbands would just be included in everything, and somehow they'd get to know about all of my secrets. They'd be telling me, "Ha, uska kya hua?" And I was like, wait, you were not supposed to know that. How do you know that?
Today we have a fantastic topic, and I'm really excited about our guest. But before we get into it, you and I both live alone. We are women in Pakistan living on our own. Mm-hmm. One of the most taboo subjects, really.
Well, technically, for those of you who know me, I don't technically live alone, but I do live alone.
But you don't live with your immediate family.
Yeah. My parents live elsewhere. Yeah. I live on my own.
Yeah, and this is our address. That's what I feel like we're giving so much information. But when I first moved to Karachi, I found a place I wanted. It was 22 apartments in one day. Finally found a place I wanted. We'll get into it more in the episode, the cup that it took me to get this place. But when I finally moved in, one of the windows in my apartment wouldn't close because there was about 15 other apartments' wires running through that window to get to the roof, okay? And when I said to my agent, I was like, well, I'm going to need to shut the window. He goes, why? And I was like,
Chipkalis.
I'm chipkalis, mosquitoes, yeah. I don't know, a person who's going to climb up and murder me. And he was like, aisa hi hota hai. And I was like, aisa nahi hota. Wow. And he just thought that I would give up because aisa hi hota hai. So that's what we're going to talk about today. It's living alone. And we have an insane guest. Please welcome to the pod, Hajra Yamin.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. This has been long in the works.
It has been.
Yeah.
The conversation, we've been going back and forth. When she coming?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And now it's finally
It kind of made me look uncool because I was like, guys, my friend Hajra said that she's down. And they were like, well, your friend Hajra doesn't come. But we should say at the top of this, I mean, I got to say it. Right now, your drama's killing it on TV.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you so
the finale
but
just happened.
You have to watch the entire thing.
Yeah,
Sabah,
she's upset
please.
that I've criticized the entire show.
So I've watched all of it.
Yeah.
Because I watched it with my grandmother, and my grandmother loved it.
Amazing.
I also really liked it, but that's a whole other episode.
Honestly, she's been your promoter every episode.
Man,
she brought it up.
It's true. I have brought it up every episode.
You can see
I was really
a review
deep
of
into
it. What's the name?
On 89, just go on to our YouTube channel and you see the review.
Yeah, it's the new show of drama reviews coming out. It's a podcast, guys.
I'll watch it.
Okay, so anyways, we've got that out of the way.
Yeah.
Good job. I'll watch the rest of them. I was really mad. But when I first reached out to you and I was like, hey, we have this podcast, please come on. You were like, just don't bring me on to talk about dramas.
Yeah.
So then we were like, what topic should we talk about? And you were pumped when I said, hey, what about women who live alone?
Yes.
So
we don't talk about this that often, right?
No.
It's something that doesn't really come up even in drawing rooms.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Happens a lot.
I mean, even now when the two of you were talking about it, I was prepping myself to talk about it. The reason being, I mean, I've been living alone for a long time, but it's just that I don't talk about it myself.
Yeah.
And also nobody asks as well.
But I feel like when it's said,
it's not an icebreaker.
It's not an icebreaker.
I live alone.
Yeah.
But people ask me, they'll be like, oh, so you live here alone. I guess they catch on when they're like, oh,
I mean, for the longest time, I would avoid this piece of information,
But why?
I mean, you meet all sorts of people, Sabah, and you don't want to volunteer this piece of information because there are times when you start receiving late night calls. Okay, hey, what's up? Can I come over? And I'm like, just because I live alone does not mean I don't have a curfew. I've given myself a curfew. I don't drive after a certain time. I don't host people.
Sorry, the only reason I'm laughing is because she told us that COVID was great.
COVID?
No, we're going to get into that.
Okay, so let's start with this. You said you've been living alone for a while, since 2016.
Yeah.
You moved out to Karachi. I'm assuming it had to do with work.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
No, and I always wanted to be honest. I wanted to live on my own. I come from a big family. We're 8 people. We're 5 sisters. So it was a lot. So,
bedroom sharing.
Yeah. So I was like, I need an out.
Okay.
And everybody was okay with it as well. But the only concern was my mother was like, just don't move in Pakistan. Go move abroad. And I was like, but
I get this a lot.
yeah. My mother's like, why do you want to move to Karachi? Go move to America. Go move to Malaysia. Go move to Kathmandu. Why Pakistan? I'm like, Mama, I don't have a problem with that. She still has an issue with that. She's like, why Pakistan?
I think security is their top priority.
I guess, but it's the same everywhere.
That's what I'm saying.
It's the same everywhere. Women's security is compromised in every single country.
I tell my parents the same thing. I'm like, you want me to move to where the UK, where people are getting stabbed?
Exactly.
Where they're
America, school shooting. I have
outside.
like a thing for every country they've ever told me to move to. In the end, they were like, just go to Norway.
Or Iceland.
Wrong. Yeah.
Literally, Iceland.
Really far. Alaska.
My dad's top thing was like, Karachi is dangerous. But I will say, like, we have no Ana Jana with Karachi.
Yeah.
Like, I think my dad's come for work like a few times in his like this stage of his life, but like nothing in his youth. And so we only had like, what has the news told us about Karachi? And they were really not about it. And then again, it was like, well, if you're gonna move out, like, why would you move out in the same country that your family lives in? Because that is odd, right? Because girls only leave the house when shadi ho jati hai, right? So
but technically same concept, right? Even if you get married and move to another city, it's the same thing essentially. This time you're just making that decision for yourself. You're like, hello,
but that's the problem, Na, is that it's not the same thing because they haven't signed you over to a stranger. Actually, it's not completely related. I saw this TikTok yesterday where this girl was like, when they'll like Gen Z will just kind of like be swaying to something, but they'll have like the most devastating caption. And so hers was just like, it's crazy that if right now I asked to sleep over at my friend's house, my parents would say no. But if tomorrow a stranger wanted to marry me, I would be rukhsateed before the end of the day. And I was like, damn, that is so true.
Okay, I dodged that bullet.
I like resent it to you, retweeted it, whatever.
Making the decision to move. We know what your mom said. What about everyone else in your family? Were they excited? They were like, oh yes.
I was never in touch with anybody to get to know their opinion. I'll be very honest with you. And I'm and if I'm villainized, amazing. I love that. But I remember I was in my early teens when I decided that I want to live by myself. I always wanted to. And my mother was, concerned कि Pakistan se bahar chale jao, ye kar lo, wo kar lo. But I was like, I tried, but it didn't happen. So I was like, what do I do? Because I'm a Pindi girl, So post graduation, I tried working in Islamabad, and I exhausted all my opportunities for 6 years. In 6 years, I was done.
Yeah.
So there was nothing to fall back on. Zang lag raha tha wahan pe baith ke. So anyway, then I just moved to Karachi, and there you go. It was Karachi's given me a lot when it comes to work, when it comes to personal growth. It's given me a lot. It's given me definitely more freedom as compared to Pindi and Islamabad.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I think all three of us have that in common, where we made a conscious decision to move back to. For me, it was back to Karachi. For you guys, to Karachi because of this. Like at the back of my head, I was also like, I will have a lot more opportunities. And I was in Lahore, which now is a very different scene. But back then, when I first moved back, I tried working there. Same thing. Didn't work out.
Does not. And the variety of people that you meet in Karachi is amazing.
Unmatched,
You
honestly.
don't see that in Pindi and Islamabad. And to be honest with you, you don't see that drive, that motivation. You don't meet people who match your passion. In Karachi, I've met people who were as passionate about my career, like be it managers, be it a stylist, they were as passionate for making me something as I wanted to be. So I saw that, I experienced that, and it's really given me a lot.
I'm with you. I would say like a lot of my ignorance came to light when I moved to Karachi, and I sat in an office, and because when you're sitting in Islamabad, Pindi, there's no ethnic diversity.
No.
You have maximum 3 ethnicities. The wildest, you'll feel if someone speaks Pashto and it's like, oh wow, we're really changing it up. And then you can move out here.
It's a whole new world.
It's like, okay, that's why they say Islamabad lives in Pakistan, right? Because it's so small. Pindi when I used to get offended when people would be like, oh, Pindi is like
Now, you know
trashed
what
or
I say now? Pindi boys don't die. They multiply.
Yeah.
I'm a Pindi boy.
I always say I'm a
जो
Pindi boy.
करना है कर लो. हाँ मैं सुबह 6 बजे wheeling करती हूँ.
Yeah, literally, and I'm like, yes, I've
If
worn
you think that's what I
velvet
do,
in summer.
fine.
It has happened.
Yeah.
But it is tough. But you know, earlier you were talking about how like we don't really not leading with it. Of course, it's like
Yeah.
kind of like a safety thing. Like I'm
Yeah.
not gonna let bunch of although we're just told the internet, a bunch of weirdos know I live alone. But there is a stigma attached to moving out on your own. So was that ever part of the conversation?
Of course it was, Sabah, but the thing is I've made a bubble for myself. You know, so the reason why I have escaped all of these conversations is because I never allowed myself to encounter them. I never made myself sit in a situation where I will have to compromise in a conversation. I just don't sit.
Good on you.
Yeah, good. That's one way.
Yeah, I just don't.
Yeah.
I just don't cater to it. And if there ever was, I've just very conveniently blocked it out.
Nice.
Which is why I honestly don't have much to share on that, because I really haven't been a part of those discussions.
Well, no, but I mean,
same,
to be honest, yeah.
I've never had anyone question the fact that like you're not with your family or whatever. But I mean, families do have those expectations with a lot of other girls. It's how you deal with it.
But you know what else happens when you start living alone? The thing is, you're so much in your survival instinct that everything else becomes noise.
Yeah.
You know, it just does not matter anymore because your survival is at stake. You know, you have to make things work. And as women, you have to make sure that you make things work because you have to prove it to them as well that you can do it.
Absolutely.
Because they think that you cannot.
So I would say like family-wise, thankfully I didn't have that issue. And frankly, if there were family members who had that issue, they would never have the spine to say it to me or to my parents, to be honest. But I will say that because I'm understand the perception of solo living, like I'm pretty cognizant of like riders, delivery people, people like that, not really clocking that I'm on my own, because like you, like suddenly you're getting late night calls, and this has happened with me with InDrive a few times where I've had to start blocking numbers because they're clocking that like I'm by myself going into an apartment building or whatever. Not
Sabah,
that
I never wanted to buy a car.
So
I run away from responsibilities. Okay, so especially
and
like
yet you did the most adult thing ever.
Yes, so I had to, because you know Kareem and InDrive people, they would start recognizing you, then they'd see where you live, you know, and then they'd just come back or they just won't leave.
Once again, for the 100th time on this podcast, what's wrong with you people?
I
literally
don't know.
honestly,
it's
the
crazy.
Other day on TikTok I got a comment that was like, literally said my address and I'll meet you outside, and I realized there's only one possible way that could happen, and that's because it was an InDrive, which is the one I primarily take, so I'm okay calling it out. And I was so terrified, like so upset, and I was like, because that's the stigma they have of you. They think okay, let's move into why this stigma really exists. So I'm gonna kind of jump a bit forward, right? Our next thing was like how it's difficult to find a place in the first place. And stigma is really attached to that. Can you tell us a bit of what it was like for you?
So I was very lucky. When I moved to Karachi, I stayed at a friend's place for the first couple of months. So I was a little sheltered. But then when I made some money and I was like, okay, now I can move out of my friend's place. So I tried sharing a place. And I never made that mistake again. Because see, it's still a new concept in Pakistan of sharing space, and you just can't do it because honestly logo mein tamiz nahi hai of how to share space. You know, they don't have that. I don't think they have that mental capacity.
No, because
to
we're
share
just so
space.
entitled. Like we just feel like we will do whatever and get away with.
There's a reason I don't have a roommate, and I'm not even gonna risk it. I'm sure that I don't have the tamiz to share
you can't.
I can't.
You'll be surprised. You'll be like, oh, I'm the most tamizdar person.
Well, I
know.
lived in a dorm with someone, so I do know how to, you know.
The thing is, it's a little tricky because I know a lot of people who do have roommates or who do share a space with someone, and especially like I know somebody who actually was living alone, had moved from Islamabad here and was looking for a space, and then found a space in someone's house, and they gave them a room or whatever, gave them access to the kitchen, gave them access to certain areas in the house. It's for them, it was like a contract. It was like, okay, the person who owned the house was like, I'm going to give you space here, 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 and this is what you can do. And the other person was like, I'll be respectful of that. And they had a beautiful 3-year system going. Whereas I think the next person who came in abused that system, and then it was just, and then after that person was like, I'm never doing this again. So it goes both ways.
Luck.
With roommates also, it's literally like who you have a relationship with and whether you have that, you figure that those terms
No,
out.
my experience was never good with sharing space, so I just moved into an independent apartment later on, and with that, I mean I was like, I'm a single woman, independent, a professional. Here is my ID card, here are my details, this is what I do. But still they needed a man to validate me. They were like, we need to talk to a man. I was like, okay, fine. So I made them speak to my teacher, one of my theater acting coaches, and I was like, this is the only elder man I know in the city, so why don't you just speak to him? He'll tell you that I'm a reliable person.
And I'm assuming in 1 second they were like, yeah, okay, cool.
They were.
They didn't even like pick up the call. They just needed to know there was a number there.
So, but the biggest problem was they were just refusing to give space to an independent woman. A lot of, I saw really nice apartments, but they were just not. They were like, I don't know if men face this as well, but
yes, in some ways. When you're a single guy, the biggest preconception or whatever that men face is, oh, you're a single guy, you're gonna have parties, you're gonna have people over, and we don't want we don't want that party crowd. But with women, it's a whole other kind of perception.
Exactly.
Which
it's like you can feel them.
Can we say it?
Yeah, of course.
So I would agree. So actually, I was gonna say, we have mutual friends who, when I was moving to Karachi and I got my place, they were like, what the hell? Because they had been rejected from the same place a few years earlier on the thing that served families or orte. So that was different. Now, why don't they want women to own places? Why? I'll just bluntly say it. They think because we are out of the house and unmarried. Our first action.
My favorite line. Fast girls.
Fast girls.
Fast and loose girls.
Chalak.
I love
loose.
But,
you know.
I mean, you don't even know me. Why would you assume that about me?
I'm not even joking. Do you know how I got my apartment? Because after looking at 22 in one day on the last one, the agent and the other guy were like, she seems really boring. Like, I feel like we can show her the places that they typically didn't show single women because they were like, she's boring. And I feel like they kind of tested me because they like made some joke about how it could be a party place. And I was like, I would never want that. And I really don't. But they think you're going to run a brothel, essentially. Let's just put it bluntly. They think you're going to be up to no good. You're going to become a madam overnight. And it's like, I work in finance, but like, sure. And it is so incredibly insulting.
And especially if you're in the media industry. Especially.
Were you already working in the media?
Yes. I was already doing
exactly
theater.
Who you were. And they were like, oh, this is going to be
But at the same time, the double standards, the landlord themselves would knock at my door at 12 a.m. Oh, wo hamari phuppo aayi hui, unko aapke saath tasveer leni hai. I'm like,
amazing.
Okay. But like, the other day you were like looking at me in a certain way and I could tell what you're thinking. You were character assassinating me with your eyes, and now you're like, your papa wants to have. I'm like, okay, fine, aa jaye, le le photo, khadi ho jati hu, मैं भी खड़ी हो गई अपने PJs में picture लेने के लिए. But
yeah. So what other things did you do to put up like guards for this? Like, for example, you're saying you set your own curfews.
Dude, I actually had to go into complete isolation because I was just really scared all the time. I'll be very honest with you. Literally, if my bell would ring, I'd call a friend. Ki, listen, koi aaya, main kya karoon? And this is like good 3 years after I was staying alone in the city and everything. But I was just really scared for the longest time. And then thank God, I made some really nice female friends. They made me travel. They took me out of the country. They made me feel safe. And while I was there, something happened and I had to move out of that portion to another apartment. And then when I came back to Pakistan, though, I felt safer. Because I moved to another apartment building. I moved from a portion. But I mean, the portion that I was living in, the landlord, they were amazing people. But there were just so many openings.
Yeah.
You know, gharo ki itni openings hoti hain, like there's one balcony, there's that balcony, you know, and the doors are just like always screwed up. There's something wrong with the doors.
Especially in
all the
Paper
time.
thin. Yeah. There are no locks. It's
Exactly.
like you can do this and open them. Yeah.
So I was just not getting a good night's sleep there because of the security.
This is the other thing. Like when you live alone, you start realizing and noticing things that people who've lived in a house with an entire family full of people would never realize.
Yeah.
Like my grandmother's super paranoid because essentially it's just me and her in the house. And she's she's like, she'll put the alarm on, she'll like lock one door, lock another door. And I'm like, yo, chill. Why do you have to do all of the, like, there's a whole ritual that happens every night. And I'm like, why do you have to do this ritual? And she's like, you don't know. Someone can kick this door open, then they'll kick this door open. I'm like, they have to go through 3 doors.
Especially if it's a house and if there are too many openings, you cannot risk it. You just cannot.
Then there have been incidents where I've heard a sound or I've heard this. And I live alone, like upstairs, and she's like, someone will come and kidnap you in the middle of the night and I won't even know. And I'm like,
sweet. You can't.
Who's going to come kidnap me from inside the house?
Why me specifically? You're like, but why me specifically?
I mean, have you seen those memes where like, if I ever get kidnapped,
like,
so why me?
Guys, where are we going? That would be me in a heartbeat. I think I'd be like, so.
I mean, that would be me with my abandonment issues. Oh, you picked me.
Yes. Girl, I love it. We're both Rapindi. We both have curly hair. We both have abandonment issues. We were meant to be friends. I also, I grew up with extremely paranoid parents, like to the point of catastrophizing that, like, I can pretty much look in a room and assume the worst is about to happen at any given point. But yeah, the security thing also, like, again, not to go back, but so if I get a delivery, parcel, anything, like, no one has ever seen me. Yeah. Like, my hand comes out. Like,
I know, mine too.
Yeah, I actually, at night, sometimes, you know, when the riders are really young and it's like so, sometimes I feel bad that, like, they're young, they're doing their job and suddenly, like, hot, and I'm like, they must get scared and stuff. But yeah, it's a security measure I've taken that, like, I don't want people to clock my face with my orders and my patterns of behavior. Similarly, like, I have different names on every single app. Although I just realized Easy Paysan, friggin' whatever. Yeah. Like, you have to put your own name. Yeah. Right? And then I'm like, so then I'm like, I'm sending, but then again, they don't know which one I am, I guess. But it's tough with that. And then safety concerns is also, I've been told, oh, but you know, this is expensive and that you're choosing is expensive. And I'm like, I am paying for security.
For security.
Yeah.
I mean, the apartments that we end up living are not really worth the money that we end up paying for. It's basically the security that we're paying for.
Yeah, right? 100%.
Yeah. Did you choose something according to people you knew around, like nearby, like in the neighborhood?
So basically, I lived in this neighborhood for the last 5 years, and then I found this apartment building in the same neighborhood. So
you were comfortable,
so I
and
was
you had
comfortable,
friends
you know,
nearby.
So yeah, and thank God, the landlord, you know, they're good people. You know, they're very like efficient with calls and everything. And I'm like, nice, not bad. Yeah. You know, finally found someone who takes up responsibility. Yeah. So yeah, good people.
The other thing about moving to a whole new city is when you're in your own city, you have that comfort of, I'm used to this grocery store. I know that we'll make one phone call and that guy who's been coming for plumbing to our house for the last 20 years will still come. Yeah. New city, have to make new friends and new service people. Yeah. How is that?
So I heavily relied on some apps.
Okay.
You know, there were some apps jahan pe, you know, wo plumber or AC theek karne wale log aa jate hain.
Farmaish is one.
Farmaish and another one. Yeah. So I heavily depended on those until, you know, through them I found
the right
guys. And now, you know, I mean, God bless my help. You know, she's been around for the last 5 years. Mm-hmm. And
that's the other thing. A lot of people have really bad experiences with help. And living alone, that's even scarier.
I mean, she only comes over on Sundays, and thank God it's just me in the apartment, so there's literally nothing that has to be done. So I clean up myself. Only on Sundays she does a detailed safai of everything and leaves. Yeah. Only on Sundays.
But that's how it is abroad as well.
Yeah. I actually want to sorry, you mentioned plumber.
Yeah.
I think the hardest
PTSD.
The PTSD I have from plumber. I had a guy, y'all, the way they rip women off because we don't have a man at home and we don't have someone standing behind them. I am saying this man, this plumber, made me change my shower, right? It wasn't working. And he was like, well, I brought you a new one. It was rusted over. And he was like, it's 5,000.
Wow.
And I was like, it's rusted. He said, well, I got it 3 days ago. I was like, what did you do in 3 days that is this rusted? But sadly, like my Urdu now, actually from living alone, top tip to burgers, from living alone, my Urdu in the last 2.5 years has increased tenfold because that person... And literally it was inspired by the spite I had towards this plumber. And I was like, I need to be able to panda properly.
Yeah.
Then I found a network of other women who live alone.
It's so important.
It's so important because they will hook you up with the right people. And now,
and you need women who you can call at 3 a.m. You know, emergency contacts.
Yeah.
I mean, that is one investment that you have to make, to know similar women. And you know, just women, even if you're not in touch with, but would just pick up your call at 3 a.m. if need be. You know, that's
or
very
even people
important.
like I drive alone, and I drive all over the place alone, and at different odd times of the day, I myself made a rule: I will not drive alone at night.
No.
I will try and keep someone with me, and if I don't have it, I just won't go. That's my rule.
I always take someone on call.
Or
always,
share location, or like have a backup in case your car breaks down at any point. I have like friends all the way from one point A to point like to home. I have friends along the way, so I will always have their numbers handy in case something happens. I'm not getting out of my car. I'm just gonna call them. They'll come pick me up. So these are things that like you kind of have to, and like I said, experiences along the way of when you live alone.
Actually, this is kind of a great...
I've learned so much.
We'll get into this because we're going to talk about mental health in a sec. But I'll say, I just had this conversation like a day ago where someone's like, oh, but like you must love it. Like living on your own, doing your own thing. I was like, 100%. Like it is a privilege. I don't take it lightly. Putting my own place together. There's been so many joys. I've discovered so many things I actually love through it. That being said, the constant vigilance, like we've been talking, there is a constant vigilance to being a woman. And like, I'm sorry, I know it's dangerous everywhere, but we're women in Pakistan, so I'm going to talk about being women in Pakistan. There's an added vigilance when you're like, hold up, like there's this specific information about me which frankly can be dangerous in the wrong hands. What is like the mental health toll of living on your own? Let's get into that, my friends. How are our brains doing?
It's exhausting. It's exhausting. You know, I mean, I feel like now I'm getting a little more comfortable into living here, and now that my body is getting comfortable, it's realizing somehow that it needs rest because it's been in a survival mode for such a long time. You know, I have to constantly remind myself to relax my posture a little bit, you know, to not clench my fists too much. Relax. I have to remind myself that it's a safe space. Nobody's going to do anything, you know. You're going to be fine. So it's just, and you know, the fact that it gets so much in the way of your work. All of us are creative people. I act, you do something, we're all creative heads. And I mean, we are supposed to be free. We are supposed to feel free, you know. And when I go on set, I have to teach myself. I have to give myself 5 minutes and tell myself that how I need to be bodily, physically, mentally free so I can take up a new character, because I'm just so alert.
And also at the back of your head, constantly thinking about things.
What's happening back at home? You know, अच्छा तेजी से हवा चल रही है, तूफान की अलामत है अभी. So, you know, what's gonna happen? Shit, did I leave a balcony door open? You know, I'm calling my guards and everything. What's
Girl,
up?
the way you are triggering my PTSD right now.
You know,
for me, it's like, did I leave the iron on? And the whole way to work, I'm driving. I'm like, oh my God, I left the iron on. Oh my God, who do I call to tell them to go and check? But I can't even do that. I lock my room. Oh my God, it's going to be, or I left a window open, God forbid a bird flies through. And I come home and there's like a bird there. But the other thing, the thing that really makes me clench, lizards. Living alone and then dealing with a creature that invades your space. And then how are you supposed to get it out in the middle of the night?
I have a very simple rule. Whatever room the lizard is in, guess what? That is now their room. And I will politely excuse myself. You know what? My bad. I'm sorry.
Oh man.
living alone, apart from the birds and the other creatures that come and visit you often, it can be super lonely too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, how was 2020? How was going through the pandemic where everyone was home? I mean, you feel safe because everyone's at home and you know everyone's at home, no one's coming to visit you. But like, how was it? Like,
I mean, I'll be honest with you, I'm only human. There were some moments where I felt extremely isolated, but it was, I mean, I was one of those blessed ones who I was good.
You kept yourself busy.
I kept myself busy. I caught up on all of my books that I wanted to read. I was painting. I had my 2 cats. You know, so it was nice. And I started reviewing books on my Instagram, and like it was a sort of a book club situation going on. So it was nice. But yeah, at the same time, I mean, there were some scares, and when the lockdown started, I made sure that I'd just get up and dress up. That was important, but routine was important.
Neither of us lived in apartments during COVID, right? You didn't either. So like, what was the environment like in like the building?
I was in a portion.
Oh, you were in a portion.
I was in a portion. Okay. So I had a balcony. I had a garden downstairs. So I could just go walk, or I started running outside, and until Dalas started following me. Literally, Dalas started following me, and I had to stop running outdoors. And it was a very safe neighborhood, but I would just notice these Dalas literally just following me. I'm taking one round and they're taking the other round. And I was like,
what special kicks do they get out of that?
I can't do that anymore.
One time a man was staring at me, just staring. And I was like, what do you think is going to happen? And then they just went.
Yeah. This happened with
10
me today.
10 minutes committed. And then I said, hey, what do you think's about to happen? Like, I'm the crazy person for saying that out loud. Yeah. But, sorry, you were saying it happened to you today?
It happened today. Like, someone was just staring and I was like, मैं फिर यूँ चली गई. This is what I usually do. But like, I just try to avoid any conflict at this point.
Actually, yesterday,
because it doesn't do anything to them,
and it's counterproductive.
Some of them love it.
Yeah,
some of them will literally hug, and then some of them are like, "It's working," and that's like, what movie has taught these baboons this? But to build off of Elhaam's question, what about loneliness in general? Because that's a question I get that a lot. I could never live on my own. I'd be so lonely.
Yeah. No, to be very honest with you, I'm very attached to my freedom and my independence. I'm a hyper independent person, and I do not know how to ask for help. So until I'm dying or the situation is, qayamat aane wali hogi, tab jaake I'll ask for help. Otherwise, I will not. I have a huge problem in asking for help, and it does get lonely at times. But the thing is, in the bigger picture, I'm happier.
Yeah.
The good times there are more good times than bad times. And yes, the loneliness, it does come and go, but it's okay. I deal with it. I have some friends. I make a few calls. So I talk to my friends, and it's fine. Yeah, it does get lonely, guys. It does. But
what we're trying to do is break you down and make you tell us you're lonely.
What I do then? I just watch Korean dramas.
Yeah.
That's all I do.
I feel lonely at times.
Yeah.
Like, I'll say, like, at first I was like, oh, it's like a friend thing. Like, I don't have a community here yet. Like, it'll take time, build it up. But sometimes I've realized more and more that when I walk in, I'm like, oh, I could be sitting with my parents right now. Like, I do get this thought now. Yeah. But I also think because I moved out, my relationship with them got better.
How nice.
Same.
And, right? And so now I miss it because the version we are now isn't like, that being said, we had a blowout fight this morning. Like, we're not flipping tables. But sometimes I do feel that loneliness. Or sometimes I'm just like, man, if I just had like one family member here that I could be like, hey, this needs to get done. Yeah. Like, come and do this with me.
Yeah. Like, for me, it's moments of like adulting. Like, I'm just like, I don't want to adult anymore. Yeah. Can someone else just do it for me? Or just someone else step in and help? But like, there are times when, like, I mean, honestly, there's no one else. So I have to do it myself.
You have to. There are moments when I just want to free fall.
Yeah.
And like,
or just take a day off.
Koi pakad lo. Yeah. I'm going to fall now.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it. Let me do it. Are you catching me? Literally.
But what other things have you learned? Like, because I say this, like everyone who asks me, how does it feel living alone? And a lot of my friends went straight from like their parents into like when they got married and moved into another house, and they've always had people around them, and they've always told me, oh, I'm so envious of the fact that, you know, you are free and you don't have all of these other things. And I'm like, yo, it's grass is not always greener. The problems that you have, I may have problems too, but they're different kind of problems.
No, single people who live alone, their problems are usually dismissed by married friends.
Yeah.
I have lost a lot of girlfriends for this reason, because somehow their husbands would just be included in everything, and somehow they'd get to know about all of my secrets. They'd be telling me, "Ha, uska kya hua?" And I was like, wait, you were not supposed to know that. How do you know that? And turns out my friend had told her husband / boyfriend or whatever. And then I was like, okay, shit, this cannot go on anymore. Because you are my safe space. And then your time and your convenience is always kind of dismissed, because just because they are married, so their lives are kind of more relevant and more busy. So the circle of friends that I have, it keeps getting smaller, which is good for this reason, because being a single person living alone independently, it's just perceived that it's easier, that there's not a lot of problems.
Right.
You know, it's always a misconception.
Right. No,
So,
I mean, I get the perception of, but you live alone and you don't have any attachments, or you're not that busy, so you'll definitely be available. And I'm like, no, I'm not available.
Yeah.
Because I am taking the day off from life.
You know what my
So I'm not
favorite meme
available.
lately is, what are you doing this weekend? Enjoying my damn rent. Like, I am laying on the rented, like, this couch, this rent, all of this bijli, all this money. I am enjoying it now. No, I'm like, what do you think it has taught you about yourself, though? Like, I think one thing is, like, I feel like those lean into each other. Is that you do kind of look around and you sort of edit your life a bit, because honestly, I feel like you kind of gain a little respect for yourself.
For yourself,
that maybe
you start
was missing.
loving yourself. You start accepting yourself for who you are. I mean, there are moments when I'm just lying on my couch and I'm like, अगर कोई और होता और वो अगर मुझे ऐसे पड़ा हुआ देख लेता तो क्या होता? But then I'm like, this is me.
I love that freedom, though.
You know? Then I'm just like, this is me, and what am I? I'm harmless.
Yeah.
You know, so why am I being so hard on myself for being human? You know, for the longest time when I moved here and when I started living alone, one pattern that I broke was just to not think of anybody as male or female, or not think of myself as male or female. Just take out the word gender. Everybody is a human being. So every single time I'd be forced into a conversation where we're talking about, you know, this is a woman, this is a man, whatever, I just conveniently take myself out of it, because I want to live in a bubble where I think that everyone is a insan ka bachcha. That's it. That is it. Hence, I mean, I've spent a lot of time in isolation because of these reasons. It's now that I've started stepping out of the house. I've started talking to people. You will see me more now, because I'm genuinely making that effort, because it has stemmed a little bit of social anxiety in me as well. You know, I mean, yes, I was trying to break all of these patterns in my head, trying to humanize myself and the people around me and the relationships around me, but it has instilled a little bit of social anxiety, which I'm trying to work on now. So,
well, I think that's really interesting, because I've also said before, like, it seems the more self-aware I am, like, I'm kind of losing it a little bit because of that. But you do heal. I like what you said. I'm kind of bouncing back that, like, you know, if I'm just laying here and then I'm harmless. That is such an interesting way to look at it, because I do think a trap of living on your own, and, you know, you're earning and you're paying your own bills and you're doing this whole thing, is that any moment that you're not, like, on, you're like, I'm wasting time.
Yes.
In fact, I even felt at times that because I had my own place, if I wasn't hosting, if I wasn't inviting people over, if I wasn't using the space, even though for some reason me living in my own home is not using it, that I was wasteful, that I was not being grateful and things like that. So that is interesting. I like the way you said that like, I'm just harmlessly living the life that I'm working for.
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting.
It's very important. The human thing that you said, I'm the same. I also will categorize people as, humans, some
Yeah.
good, some bad, some
Yeah.
really, really bad.
Yeah.
The ones we meet. But like, I absolutely agree with you on that. Because once you start doing that, you kind of open your mind.
It becomes easy to live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your life becomes more bearable, and you also see some good happen in the world.
Absolutely.
I've seen, I've seen so many strangers come up to help me. Even, I mean, there were people who could just see that I'm a person who has a problem asking for help, so they'd just come up to me. That has happened. So there's always help out there.
Right, yeah.
So there's always help out there.
There is. There is.
One woman, especially when it comes to women, another woman will see you and will reach out. That has happened, definitely.
Has anyone ever reached out assuming that maybe you're feeling a little down or lonely, or have they like seen it and been like, no, you know what, I want, because that's something that like I experienced it, where there were people who they weren't even like really close friends.
Yeah.
They were just friends from afar. But like, especially after the pandemic, I had a lot of social anxiety.
Yeah.
Because we were home for so long and I enjoyed it so much that once we started going out, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I've rethought my entire existence because I was super social before that. And there were people who were like, you're different now. And are you okay? Are you lonely? What's going on with you?
Yeah.
And then eventually, and I'm the kind of person that doesn't open up.
Yeah.
So it kind of pushed me to open up. And then I kind of looked inside and I was like, actually, that's the problem.
Yeah.
I was just feeling very lonely and isolated from the rest of the world.
Yeah. No, to be honest with you, I've made a point now to keep a lookout for people who need help. Because I know how it feels to not being able to ask for help.
Yeah.
So if you see someone who's struggling with something, and if you are an observant person, and if you can khamoshi se help them, no need to announce it, then do it. There's no harm in it. If you can, if it's convenient for you.
In fact,
why not?
you're doing a service to society.
Yeah, why not? So, yeah.
Okay. So I wanted to ask, well, we were going to ask like embracing independence,
We
but
can
also
talk
staying
about
connected.
that.
Because I kind of like, I'm constantly oscillating between, like when I first moved, like I was just telling her, I felt really guilty that like, why am I not inviting people every night and rent big, the party, whatever. And then my friend said to me, she goes, dude, like, let's say in this world, you will one day get married. Thanks for her for thinking that about me. And have kids or something someday. She goes, this might be one of the only points in your life where like you're just living on your own. She goes, and this is not something every woman gets to do, especially women from where we're from and stuff. So like, even if you're just sitting alone on your couch with one lamp on and a book, it's a luxury and you should enjoy it and you should embrace it. Now, here's the thing. I think I took that very, very far. Where like anytime, on one hand, I'd be like, nobody invites me to anything. The minute I'm invited, I'd be like, actually, I'm on this couch and I really don't want to get up.
I mean, if I don't find a parking spot, I leave.
Facts, that's true. Also, you're like a 20 minutes in and out. She comes in, says happy birthday to you, to see you, and she's out.
She's working on it now.
Yeah.
I'm working.
She'll stay longer.
Minutes.
Next time we invite her, she'll stay longer.
Yeah. So how are you finding that balance? Now, you said now you're like actively doing it.
Yeah, I am now. And another thing, that I've learned in this, and if any girls who are listening to this who want to live alone, just, be economical about it. Don't spend too much. You don't need to, because first of all, it's a rented space. You might have to move out later. So just make sure that all the saman that you have at home can fit in a small Suzuki.
Oh yeah, moving tips.
Where were you when I moved here?
So just make sure. And also, like, there are such good like secondhand furniture stores. There's so much you can do. There's so much fun you can have with secondhand furniture.
That's my whole part.
Living alone, you get to choose and decide the coffee table, the cushions, what kind of lamps you want. It's so much fun.
Even if you move and you have literally no money, because I've seen that time as well, that I moved in a room and I didn't have any money. So I was like, I don't have shelves. What do I do? So I went to a fruit wall. I picked up some patties. I spray painted them. I was like, there you go. I put them up on the wall and I had bookshelves. So, just be creative and don't fall into that trap of, I don't have any money, I'm depressed. No, make the most. Because see, the thing is, this time, ye dobara nahi aayega.
Yeah.
And this is that freedom wala time which you might not experience in the next 10 years.
Absolutely.
You know? So, and a lot of times, you know what happens? A lot of times, a lot of people I know have moved to Karachi and then moved back to Pindi or Islamabad or Lahore, saying that they couldn't sustain it and that there were not many opportunities for them. I was like, no, this city has actually opportunities for everyone. And if you moved out, and there's a problem with you.
Stritter, you come sit and talk to my parents real quick about this.
Which has opportunities for everyone, for everyone from every part of the society.
Well, I do want to acknowledge that there is like a shortage of jobs in Pakistan right now, just so that the comments aren't like, listen, you
but that said, in Karachi, where I know where she's coming from, like in every strata, you will find something or the other. Yes, you may be looking for a specific kind of job and you might not find that, but there are opportunities everywhere.
True. I was looking for a rich retired wife. Turns out there's so many steps in the middle before you are a rich retired. You don't just land in Karachi, get a ring.
No jobs in there.
No. There's almost no jobs in that. It's especially past the age of 23. It's deeply upsetting in an ageist category.
That too.
I'm actually in agreement with you. My apartment is literally a lot of it. That was sort of like my thing on Instagram when I first moved in. Is I was like, guys, look at the way I'm like fleecing the world to do secondhand stuff and buying off of other people. And I've sold a bunch of my furniture actually to other people whenever I want to fix something. But I think that's a great tip, is I think remembering why you're doing it, why you're moving out is a big thing. You know, for us three, you know, opportunity, or, you know, like, you know, I don't want to give too much of Elhaam's business away, but like, you know, you're with family in a certain way, or, you know, you're out here and you're doing your thing, or you're coming back, or jobs and stuff. There's a reason you're here. And I think you're right. Like, don't get caught up in, and trust me, you're talking to someone who literally has an Instagram where she's constantly buying lamps. I had to sell like 8 lamps, guys. Like eventually, you know, groceries matter. What other tips would you give to single women coming out here to apartment shop? Like, one of my big ones would be like, do not compromise on safety. Like truly, no rupee is better spent than on sukoon.
Yeah. You have to spend on the security more than anything. More than anything, if you're planning to move, make sure you have some money. Make sure you have savings. You have something to fall back on. You know, and don't spend too much on pointless things.
Yeah, don't let Karachi's food distract you.
Don't do
Some
that
of us
too
got punished in that too.
Like all the Pinterest stuff. Like sometimes, like all these e-commerce websites, I'm like, I need to have this.
Yeah.
But like, you really don't.
You really don't.
Yeah.
You really don't. Yeah. So just like get into secondhand stuff. Prioritize what is it that you need to do. What you really need. You know, and if you spend the first couple of years, you know, saving that chunk, then you can, you know, give yourself leverage to do what you can treat yourself then.
Yeah, go on holiday, spend it there.
And also I would say there's a lot of groups on Facebook and things like that where it's literally about solo living, like women who live on their own. Like even I got a lot of good tips from there. I think like, although we were talking about loneliness, I think it's approaching this with, you're not going to be alone. Like there's a lot of women who have done it. Now I think more and more Pakistani women are taking the leap and living on their own. And they're like, I'm not just going to wait to like marry some chump.
The amount of messages that I've read online where girls are like, hey, looking for a roommate. Hey, I have a space. If any girl wants to come share or whatever, it's a safe space. I have a really nice apartment. A lot of people are doing that now. And it's a great culture to have, because it's a community kind of coming together and looking after you as well.
Exactly.
And just what you learn about yourself, I think, like, I had really lost myself into regressing into a child with which I don't regret. Whenever I come home, I'm still a child. But like I got a lot of confidence back. Like you were saying, when you came back, and we've even mentioned plumbers, like there's going to be a day when there's a switch in you and you learn to start handling stuff. And I feel like there's such a bachari culture in Pakistan where we think all women are just helpless, and it's that we're really not. And we can get things done. That's why I'm going to end this speech on this. Any last tips?
I mean, just make sure you make a tribe of which has plumbers, electricians, a property dealer, you know, and a couple of female friends. Make sure you have a tribe. Work on the tribe. That's very important.
Absolutely.
I cannot stress plumber enough. Your plumber is your king. Let me tell you. Do not get one that bullies you. Get one that explains things to you in a condescending but gentle manner. Hajra, thank you so much for coming on today. I think we're going to have you back. I like hanging out with you.
No, I'd love to come back.
We'll get another 20 minutes out of it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I would but thank you for having me.
No, thank you.
Of course, anytime. And again, congratulations. It's just an awesome week. I don't know when this will air, but she's having a great week with the finale of the show and stuff.
Thank you.
And guys, that's it. Bye. We're all going to go home and be alone now.